The Phoenix Suns were once seen as a championship-caliber team. With a trio of all-stars in Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, expectations were sky-high. But just one season later, the franchise is falling apart in every direction. They've just fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after only 1 year, making him the third coach in 3 seasons. That kind of instability reflects more than coaching problems. It signals confusion and disorder at the top. To make matters worse, Kevin Durant has openly stated he's respectfully okay with being traded. When your franchise superstar is willing to walk away, it's a red flag for the entire organization. And all of this is happening while the Suns have the highest payroll in the NBA. They've spent more money than any other team, and still ended their season with a first-round sweep. No playoff run. No momentum. Just disappointment. Despite this, owner Matt Ishbia publicly claimed that the house is not on fire. According to him, 26 of the 29 other teams would trade places with the Suns. In reality, Phoenix is strapped financially, has no remaining draft capital, and lacks the flexibility to make significant changes. The house may not be on fire, but it's definitely sinking. There have also been concerning signs on the court. Videos circulated of Bradley Beal brushing off Coach Vogel's hand during a timeout. Durant, known for his calm demeanor, looked frustrated in interviews. He vowed never to be swept, and then it happened. And after the series loss, he simply said he'd just be better next year, without offering much clarity. These aren't isolated incidents. They reflect a locker room that lacks unity and a leadership structure that can't keep things together. From coaching to communication, the Suns have lost their identity. If there's one turning point in the Phoenix Suns' downfall, it's the back-to-back blockbuster trades that completely changed the direction of the franchise. First, the Kevin Durant deal. When Matt Ishbia took over as owner, one of his first major moves was trading away Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 unprotected first-round picks to acquire Durant. That's not just a high price. It's a gamble that tied the team's future to one player in his mid-30s with a history of injuries. Bridges and Johnson weren't just role players. They were young, highly effective, and fit perfectly within the team system. Trading them for Durant may have added star power, but it came at the cost of depth and chemistry. It also meant giving up full control of their next several drafts, which could now benefit the Brooklyn Nets, especially if Phoenix continues to decline. Then came the Bradley Beal trade, a move that puzzled analysts and fans alike. The Suns sent out Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and more draft picks to acquire Beal, who arrived with a massive contract and a no-trade clause, making him almost impossible to move later on. Beal's fit alongside Booker and Durant was questionable from the start, and so far, it hasn't worked at all. Beal is making around $50 million a year while averaging just 17 points per game. For context, Austin Reeves of the Lakers is producing better numbers and making a fraction of the salary. Beal's performance has declined, and with that no-trade clause, he has the power to block any potential deal. That puts Phoenix in a financial trap. Together, Durant, Booker, and Beal make around $150 million per season, locking the Suns into a salary cap situation that puts them over the second tax apron. That severely limits their ability to make trades, sign free agents, or improve the roster in meaningful ways. What's worse is that the team no longer has bench depth. In trading away Bridges, Johnson, Crowder, and Paul, the Suns lost players who brought defense, experience, and effort. Now, when the big three aren't performing, there's no support. And when injuries hit, there's no cushion. The team even tried to find solutions last offseason, like pursuing Tyus Jones, but with no cap space and no draft picks, their hands were tied. They had no room to maneuver. It's important to point out that James Jones, the Suns' general manager, had built a strong team before these trades. He drafted well, developed talent, and made smart deals. But it's become clear that many of these recent moves were ownership-driven, not GM-led. Once Matt Ishbia took control, aggressive and impulsive decisions began dominating the team's strategy, and the franchise is now paying the price. The result? A broken core, no flexibility, no bench, and no future assets. The foundation of the team was torn down for a short-term gamble, and it hasn't paid off. Next, we'll look at how coaching became the scapegoat, and why blaming the bench doesn't fix what's truly broken. The Suns didn't just lose games, they lost direction. And instead of acknowledging the core problems with their roster and team structure, they've continued to blame one person, the head coach. In the past 3 years, Phoenix has cycled through 3 respected coaches. Monty Williams led them to the 2021 Finals. Frank Vogel won a title with the Lakers. Mike Budenholzer won a title with the Bucks. These are not average names. These are championship-level coaches. But even they couldn't survive the dysfunction in Phoenix. Monty Williams was let go after being blamed for a disappointing playoff exit, even though he never had a full season with Durant and Beal. Some fans agreed with the move, but many felt he didn't get a fair chance. Next came Frank Vogel, a defense-first coach with a proven record. But within months, videos surfaced of players showing visible frustration. One clip showed Bradley Beal brushing off Vogel's hand during a timeout. The team's defense looked elite some nights, and completely disconnected the next. Effort was inconsistent. Communication broke down. Then came Mike Budenholzer. His time in Phoenix lasted just one season. Reports said his relationship with Devin Booker was tense. In one incident, Bud reportedly told Booker he was too vocal on the court and during timeouts, something Booker found shocking. Although both downplayed the exchange, it raised questions about how much control Bud actually had over the team. Another example was the situation with Jusuf Nurkic. Budenholzer traveled to Croatia in the offseason to build a relationship with him. Nurkic responded by getting in shape and improving his shooting. But once the season began, Bud abruptly benched him with no explanation. Nurkic later told the media that Bud never communicated the reasons, and their relationship completely fell apart. Eventually, Nurkic was traded to Charlotte. Reports from inside the locker room described frustration, confusion, and even mockery. After a particularly bad loss to the Clippers in April, Bud's yelling in the locker room was so loud it could be heard from the hallway. Players rolled their eyes. One even struggled to hold back laughter. All of this shows that the coaching problem wasn't really about the coaches themselves. It was about a team that wasn't built to function, no matter who was in charge. When the core of your team doesn't fit together, when there's no true point guard, no wing defender, and no rim protector, no system will work. And while the front office continued to change coaches, the real problem, the roster, remained untouched. General Manager James Jones, once the architect of a strong, well-balanced team, has been sidelined. Sources say owner Matt Ishbia and CEO Josh Bartelstein have taken over trade decisions and roster control. That kind of interference rarely ends well in professional sports, and Phoenix is proving that. The fans have grown tired. Post-game press conferences sound like reruns. "We've got to be better" has become a catchphrase. Even Booker admitted that the team waited too long to draw the line. At some point you've got to draw the line, and it should have been drawn a long time ago. But that line was never drawn. And until the Suns admit the real problems, their roster construction, poor fit, and ownership overreach, coaching changes will do nothing. As we look forward, the question now is, what happens next for the Phoenix Suns? Are they destined for a long rebuild, or is there hope to turn things around in the near future? With the current structure, it seems like they're stuck in a hole, but that doesn't mean all is lost. The primary focus in the coming months will likely be Kevin Durant. Despite his age and injury history, Durant remains one of the most skilled and efficient players in the NBA. However, with the Suns' current roster falling apart and their window rapidly closing, Durant might be on the move this summer. There's already speculation about potential destinations, with the New York Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks being the frontrunners for Durant's services. The question for the Suns is whether they can get enough in return to rebuild their future. Given Durant's age, he's 36 now, and his expiring contract in a few years, Phoenix might not get the same return they would have if they traded him earlier. But if the Suns decide to trade Durant, they'll need to be strategic about it, aiming for young talent and draft picks to help them reset. The other major piece is Bradley Beal, whose contract has been a significant burden on the Suns. Beal is making around $50 million per season, and despite his offensive skills, his fit alongside Booker and Durant has been problematic. Beal's performance has dipped, and with a no-trade clause in his contract, Phoenix may struggle to move him unless they find a trade partner that fits his needs. If they can't trade Beal, a buyout could be their only option, but it would require massive financial sacrifice on the Suns' part. The future of Devin Booker is another storyline to watch. At just 28 years old, he's the one piece Phoenix will likely build around moving forward. However, if the Suns decide to trade Durant and Beal for young assets, it could signal the start of a full rebuild, one that might focus solely on Booker as the face of the franchise. One thing is clear, rebuilding seems to be on the horizon. The Suns don't have enough assets or flexibility to stay competitive in the short term, especially with the financial situation they're facing. They've reached the second luxury tax apron, limiting their ability to make meaningful moves. The combination of a depleted roster and a high payroll means that Phoenix has few options unless they start trading their stars. Rebuilding will be a painful process, but it might be Phoenix's best option. They've already lost their future draft picks and made moves that have hurt their depth. Without proper assets or cap space, they're stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. This could lead them to embrace a full rebuild, potentially trading Durant and Beal, and collecting as many future assets as they can. Phoenix's window for contention has likely closed for now. The team that was once on the brink of greatness is now facing one of the toughest decisions in franchise history. Rebuild or blow it all up and hope for a miracle. If they're serious about building a championship contender again, it might take a complete teardown, something no fan base wants to go through, but sometimes necessary in the NBA. The question now is, will the Suns commit to a rebuild and let Booker lead them through it? Or will they continue to chase an elusive championship with a fractured roster, hoping that the next move will be the one to fix everything?